If we can hit 3,000 likes, that would be amazing. And for the best football prints for your friends or family, link down below to my own design company, mazzelladesigns.co.uk, link down below top of the description. Use code Luton for 15% off. Back in May 2023, I did a video titled Luton Town, the greatest story in English football history. Now, when I did that, I understood that I was going to have a few people say that, oh, what about Leicester City, for example? Oh, I'm sure there's probably other clubs that have stories that are particularly fantastic. However, Luton Town I stuck with, and I still stand by that even further, thinking that their story is somehow still not over. Throughout the entirety of the summer, I was consistent with the fact that I really wanted Luton to stay up. However, I just couldn't put it into words how, other than just grit and fight. Those are the only two words I can think of that can keep Luton Town in the Premier League. And even though that is possible, with the amount of power and money that now dominates the Premier League, with the vast resources that they are up against, I just couldn't see Luton Town staying up, or I couldn't explain it in a way that made sense. Luton Town in February are 17th. They are outside the relegation zone. Now, people sometimes see Luton as a lower English football side. However, people do forget that they were a month or two away from being in the Premier League back in 1992. They were relegated in the last season of the English First Division before it was officially rebranded as the Premier League. Luton Town was at the top tier of English football back in the 90s. So to see them back in the Premier League is not too surprising, other than the fact it's the manner how they did it, and that is simply not really having money. And money has always been a massive talking point with Luton, especially with their past, especially the 2000s, when they were constantly in administration and were even docked 30 points in one goal. And that is something that they will always make sure that you know. So going into this season, most people thought that Luton Town would be going down and would probably be 20th the entire way, but they'll at least But they will at least, you know, show some fight, but it will just be too much for them. That's the kind of general consensus, which you probably can't blame people for thinking. And they started a year in a way that many people thought that they would. And it was difficult, obviously, when even you got people from the BBC like Crooks saying that he can't even take Luton Town seriously. These sneering comments by journalists and pundits alike, or just people in the media, is embarrassing to say the least. They spent around £20 million on 6 transfers, with a few loans and 3 transfers too. And don't forget where Luton Town came from. And don't be surprised to see why they've not spent too much money. This is the same club that went into administration 3 times and was playing non-league football as recently as 2014. 10 years ago, and that is because of the administrations that caused back-to-back relegations. Luton is by far one of the greatest rags to riches stories. There's of course some other great comparisons, like Bournemouth, for example, who rose up through the leagues and did a fantastic job to get to where they are nowadays. Brighton and Hove Albion. Brighton, who in the 90s were a game away from being out of the Football League thanks to Robbie Reynolds, and well, look at them now, they're now playing in the Europa League, beating Ajax away at Amsterdam and beating Marseille at home and in the knockout rounds. And of course there's also Wigan Athletic, a team which people kind of forget about a lot now in the kind of top bits of English football. However, they had a fantastic story that ended up being in Premier League, staying there for a long time, being competitive and winning an FA Cup along the way. But yet I would still say that Luton Town is possibly the most impressive out of all of them. Simply because trying to do that now, trying to compete now with the money coming downwards as well from teams that have been previously in Premier League as well, and the dominance that they have, it's just much more impressive. The majority of Luton's signings was all from the EFL. Ryan Giles was the only one that wasn't from EFL, came from Wolves, and was the most expensive player of 5 million quid. Thomas Kaminski from Blackburn, Mads Anderson from Barnsley, Taif Chong from Birmingham City, and Jacob Brown from Stoke. And don't forget Marvus Nakamba too, who was actually from Villa. Ross Barkley, Ogbene as free transfers, and Lukonga and Kabore on loan. Most people wouldn't even think twice or look at any of these players' names. However, in the eyes of Luton Town fans, this was incredible, mind-bending. This was transformative in a way that you can never even imagine. What makes Luton so great and tough to play against is the culture at the club, and this is helped by Rob Edwards, but it was always there. The culture club is ingrained within it. It's self-policed, and Rob Edwards is adding his own elements to that, but it's already there. Most impressive thing this year is how they played against top 6 sides, especially at home. That in almost every single game there was a scare for the other team in those games. If it was Arsenal home or Liverpool or Chelsea, Man City as well. Luton Town was 1-0 up at half time against Man City. I can't even tell the last time I saw Burnley lead City. And this wasn't all by surprise, it was deserved. The way for me to explain it is that it reminds me of a traditional, from what I used to watch at the time, Burnley, Sean Dyche, effective, kind of long ball kind of style play, however mixed in with really effective high press. And that means that they've been getting results, and they've become a team that people don't really want to play against right now because you're going to get a tough game. Going away to Sheffield United, beating them. Going away to Burnley, getting a draw. Going away to Everton twice and beating them as well. Going away to Newcastle, scoring 4 goals. Playing Brighton at home. Brighton is not a bad team, and beat them 4-0. Luton now have Sheffield United at home coming up, so they beat them. Well, they could be clear by bottom 3 by even more. It's probably, I'd be more surprised if they don't beat them, I'll be honest. And then Man United at home. I mean, that's just an obvious win for Luton, isn't it? The Premier League means so much to Luton Town, not only from a perspective of being in the league competitively, but how much that money will mean to the community around it. That money can also help to building new houses around the area. Community areas around Luton Town, retail parks and restaurants, bars, everything that can help a community. And them staying up and having another year in Premier League, it's almost unfathomable the difference that can make to a community. This isn't normal for a team and a community like this to have this much help. It's hard to really put into words what this really means and how much of a surprise it would be to not just normal people but to Luton Town fans if they do stay up this year. They are 4th in the form table and is only a point away from Nottingham Forest, who, by the way, spent £30 million on one player when Luton Town has spent £30 million in the last 30 years. Burnley spent 100 million quid, okay, and I'm annoyed because that's me. Okay, we spent that much money and we are just pathetic right now. The Sheffield United, I mean, they really didn't have much of hope. They sold 2 of their best players before the season even began. Even still, they still spent some money and they've shown not even a quarter of the fight. Luton Town are without a doubt the people's champion. When I go on my timeline on Twitter, people are non-stop talking about Luton Town. They are literally the topic of the season, and if they do stay up, Rob Edwards is guaranteed the manager of the season. I don't care who wins the league. I don't care if it's Unai Emery or if it's Klopp or whoever. If Rob Edwards keeps Luton Town in the Premier League, then it's done. Manager of the season. Again, no one could even imagine a world where they stayed up in any way back in August. No one gave them a chance. Not even Luton Town fans gave themselves a chance. As a Burnley fan, and even though we're fighting for relegation, but we're not fighting with even the half of the actual belief that you guys have. So we're probably definitely not staying up. So you might as well. Luton Town are proof that football is not dead yet. That money has not completely riddled every single element of this game. And money does not mean everything. That a culture of a football club means the most out of anything else. Not as a culture, but also a clear and precise transfer recruitment strategy and how to get the community together and to all go in one direction. Hard work beats talent. And even though Luton will face footballers, and they have faced footballers that earn 4, 5, 6 times the amount they are worth and have been bought for transfer fees worth more than an entire football club, it does not matter, as football is played on its merit and it always starts at 0-0 with 11 men on the pitch on both teams. And it doesn't matter how much you're bought for, how much do you want the ball, and how can you effectively play the game of football. Luton are the example to every single club in the country below the Premier League of how you can run a successful football club that's stable, that isn't purely reliant on being bought out by someone who's a billionaire somewhere or part of some royal family, and are a true welcome throwback to what football used to be, which was about your club, your core, your identity, and who represents you. And that means more than everything else. Luton Town, the people's champion. Tell me your thoughts down below. See ya.